Hello and welcome to Shoot the Breeze, where we take a nostalgic look at a random football magazine from the past. I'm Andy Smith, aka Scott's Footy Cards on Twitter, and with me is Tom Brogan.
Hello.
In each episode we'll invite a special guest to join us in trawling through the magazine and discuss anything contained within it. This could be anything from an article, to a photograph, to a competition, to an advert. Basically, if it's in it, then we'll talk about it. So sit back and let's shoot the breeze.
Wriggles clear, might just get the chip, and he does, he's scored! Oh, what a great tackle! He's done it! Oh, brilliant! Wiggling his way, that's an excellent ball, and Dini! It's a goal, that's four for Clydebank. Excellent play by Hughes. I think the player of the match, and sweetly finished by Penny.
Welcome to part 2 of our David Fairclough podcast. We chatted through a Shoot magazine from the 24th of January 1976 in a previous podcast. Now let's jump back in and continue on our conversation with David. Okay, next one here is Reds Robbed. So this article here could be just sort of the stereotype image of Liverpool, but we'll read it anyway. It says, someone on Merseyside is the proud owner of 2 complete sets of Liverpool's playing and training gear, much to the annoyance of the club. The kit was stolen from a van en route to the laundry. Yeah, that's, you know, that's just, as I say, it's just playing up to this stereotype, isn't it? Which, yeah, I'm not a big fan of those sort of things, but it's quite humorous. It's quite humorous.
I think, yeah, obviously, we are. We do have a reputation for certain things on Liverpool, but sometimes you look at these things and you think true or false. You know,
yeah.
I'm not convinced that's I'm not convinced. I haven't been around at that time. I'm not convinced that's a true tale.
Yeah, as you were saying about who was it that looked after the kits? Was it Ronnie Moran?
Ronnie Moran.
I mean,
yeah, they were. I mean, more often than not, Ronnie's wife cleaned the kit. And the training kit never got cleaned from one season to another. Well, did at the end of the season. The kit you had for training, when you started it with it in July, you finished with it the following May. The only thing it'd been dried in throughout the winter. It was a serious health hazard wearing Liverpool's training kit.
I think if this had genuinely happened, you would have heard about it from Ronnie, wouldn't you? There would have been
without shadow. I think the boys would have. Even the boys might have stole it themselves to get some fresh kit. Because I'll be honest with you, the end of the week, Monday to Friday, your socks stood up on a Friday. They were. It was horrendous. Anybody that was at Liverpool through the 70s will tell you. It wasn't. You weren't treated like stars.
Yeah,
maybe that was maybe one of our secrets.
Well, we'll go with that. We'll say it was an inside job, shall we? That's
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds. It sounds maybe on the right line.
Yeah. Okay. So next one is About Turn. So this is one of these little stories, like the previous one, that we can maybe take it with a pinch of salt. But it says a funny thing happened on the way to Goodison Park for Martin Murray, the 17-year-old Irish lad who Everton recently signed from Home Farm. He was met at Speke Airport? Speke. So he was met at Speke Airport and whisked away in a car before the press could see him. But a posse of press cars gave chase and caught up with him at a set of traffic lights. "What's all the trouble?" asked Martin. "All we wanted was a picture of you coming off the plane," replied the photographer. Martin replied, "No problem, let's turn back and get the picture." And that's what they did. All the cars did a U-turn and returned to the airport for their picture. Hands up who thinks that's what happened.
I remember Martin Murray because he came with a great reputation. He was going to be the Republic of Ireland's George Best.
Yeah.
He was. Do you remember Martin Murray at all? Didn't last. He failed. He failed very soon. He was a big, strong lad, as Irish lads tended to be. Some of the ones who came over, the very, well built, stocky, well big legs and all that type of thing. So you can imagine he's been playing in with some lesser lads at probably at some point, obviously standing out. And they thought he was going to be a boy wonder. Came to Everton, I do remember him quite well. Fizzled out very, very quickly.
I've got a little bit of information there. He didn't make any appearances for Everton, but he was there for 5 years. But he didn't have much luck either. While he went on loan back to Home Farm in 1978, and he collapsed and was diagnosed with a faulty heart valve. The following year, while back at Everton, he ruptured his cruciate ligament in a reserve match against Leeds United. But he did manage to get back to fitness and played the rest of his career in Ireland, mainly with Drogheda, Dundalk and Crusaders, the last two of which he had spells managing as well. So he certainly didn't have a successful time over at Everton, but he went back to Ireland, and as you say, maybe it was his level, and that he was happy there, but he certainly made a career of it over there.
Yeah, I remember him. I mean, we had a few, we had a few Irish lads came over as well, and often they came with these huge reputations. But Martin Murray came. We had probably about 5 at the time. Ronnie, maybe you could add Ronnie Whelan into that. Ronnie was slight by comparison to some of these other lads. But do you remember Martin Murray? He was a well built lad, midfield player.
Yeah. So we're on the goal lines, and it's answered by Steve Carter. So the letters page. This is the letters page where each letter published gets £1.50, with the star letter getting £3. So that will sort you out for shoot magazines for the majority of the year, I think. In fact, yeah, definitely. So the one I'm going to look at is England over criticised. So this star letter this week comes from Russell Forge from Durban in South Africa, who finds it incredible that such a competitive league as the English First Division cannot produce outstanding international class players for the national team. He says, when I look at the names of the stars, I see footballers with many skills. My theory is that because of the criticism they receive, the players stop believing in themselves a little. The press is far too critical of England. They are destructive rather than constructive. The response from Steve Carter says, criticism, especially when it's savage, must have an unsettling effect on the younger stars. Even when England has won handsomely, certain newspapers and experts have still knocked them. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
I mean, we know, yourselves in Scotland, we in England, everybody wants them to do well, and if you don't live up to anywhere in expectations, then I think you have to expect that you're going to be criticised, and it's the same whether you're in Holland or Germany or whatever. I think the main thing is with the international side is that people see what the manager is trying to do, and I heard a comment about Scotland at the weekend, and it's also a bit of you could probably level it a bit at England as well as a thing to look at. I mean, when Ramsey, we looked at a thing before. When Ramsey picked his 1966 team, he didn't pick all the best players that were around in the country. He picked a team that were best in that position. So I mean, George Cole mightn't have been the best right back in the or the most outstanding right back in the country, but he did the job, and he did what Alf Ramsey did, and he wasn't scared to upset egos like leaving Greaves out of the 66 World Cup team. I think too many managers try and because they're scared of upsetting players, so they try and put them in positions that they're not comfortable with. In Scotland, for example, have a problem with Tierney and Robertson, so you got to pick one of them as a left back. One's the left back and one's not. If you try and play the two of them, then you're kind of asking for problems a little bit. Now, I don't know, I can't speak too greatly on it, but I think this goes back a little bit to that. This reminds me of what's happening here, I think.
I think the comments about the press is I think it's fair enough as well. I still can't believe sometimes the way the English press treat the English team going into major tournaments, just on the day before major tournaments, and they're breaking these crazy stories, and it's like, well, I don't understand the mentality behind it. It's crazy.
I think the press has changed down the years, hasn't it? I think where once upon a time, you could keep certain things secret. Where all of some time ago, and I can't remember the date, but even the the better papers, the so-called the Times and the Telegraph, were also, their writers were told they've got to come up with some juicy stuff, and so nothing sacred these days. It's very, everyone's looking for that little bit of sensationalism and something different. But I think maybe years ago you might have got a different type of critique from the writers of the Times and the Telegraph towards the performances of the national team.
Yeah. So we'll move on to a better story about generous fans, and it's Gary Albert from Redditch, and he writes, as a West Brom fan, I'd like to congratulate my fellow supporters for their action at the Luton versus West Brom game. Knowing Luton were on the edge of bankruptcy, the fans had a whip round and raised £30, which they gave to Luton manager Harry Haslam after the game. Steve Carter responds, we on Shoot Goal add our congratulations for this sporting gesture. It seems as though Luton were always on the edge of bankruptcy, but I'd love this idea of having a whip around and just giving it to the manager, just as he's gone off the field or something. That's a great gesture. I think
it's fun. It is fantastic, and the level. I mean, from this you gauge, at the time, £30 in 1978 was seen as a reasonable sum of money. I mean, it's kind of, what would it buy you these days? An old friend of mine actually later went on to become chairman of Luton, saved them for quite a while and got them stable. And one thing at the time, a chap called David Evans. So kind of just after this period. So it's kind of that's an interesting little footnote.
I've just thought that I know what Gary's doing. Gary Albert here, he's getting his £3 back, isn't he? Or he's got £1.50. He didn't get the star one, so he's put £1.50 in, and he said, "I'm writing it to Luton, shoot and get my money back." So, yeah, we can see what you're up to, Gary. We can see. So on to pages. Well, it's the same 2 pages, but this is Keep Up with Kevin Keegan. So he says today's players are fitter, faster, and more skillful. So Kevin touches on the criticism that modern day football is not as exciting as 20 or so years ago, that it's all based on work rate and tactics over skill. He says that football was developing all the time, pointing to a revolution in football being when the Hungarians came to Wembley in 1953 with a new approach that saw them thrash the almost invincible England team 6-3. There are differences in how defenders play the game. Previously, they would have been expected to be big and strong and stay in their area of the field. These days, they are expected to get involved more in attacking moves as well as doing their defensive job. A better diet, medical care and a tougher, more varied training programme means that players are fitter than ever. Now, Keegan says, apart from the superior fitness, most of today's players are more skillful and intelligent. They have to be able to cope with the faster pace and more sophisticated tactics. Clubs now go to great pains to study their opponents, discover their methods and evaluate their players. This is the job of one of our Liverpool backroom boys, Ruben Bennett. He spends a lot of time watching our opposition and gathering useful data about them for Joe Fagan, our chief coach, and Bob Paisley, our manager. Now, we can talk about Ruben. Ruben was a Scottish football player and manager, and he played in goal for Hull City, Queen of the South, Dundee and Elgin, and he also managed Ayr United before becoming assistant to Bobby Ansell at Motherwell. He joined Liverpool where he would become part of the famous Anfield boot room, and he stayed at Liverpool until 1986 but sadly died 3 years later, aged 76. So I'm guessing you know Ruben very well.
Amazing man, amazing guy. I mean, obviously that's quite a, he brings back an awful lot of memories. Ruben was an amazing character. I talked before about Shanks' passion and enthusiasm. Ruben was exactly the same, and he was hugely loved and respected by all the players. Ruben would take training in Shanks' day. He was the trainer, and I mean, a huge part of what went on in Liverpool through the 60s and the 70s. Amazing. I used to live close to Ruben. I used to take him home most afternoons. Actually, he never drove, and so I'd often be dropping him off every lunchtime. Really a wonderful man. Really, really wonderful man. He tells some amazing stories about being a goalkeeper and being one day he was knocked out unconscious, taken back to the dressing room. And he worked his way back onto the pitch by climbing over a wall and coming back on. So he was just full of these tales, and you'd think, true or false, you know what I mean? But he was amazing, absolutely amazing man. I think if you ever read any more about Ruben Bennett, he just make you laugh, make you cry. Amazing.
Yeah, I'll look out for more of him. So the article says Liverpool's philosophy was to find and target weaknesses in other teams. For example, running at an older defender or targeting goalkeepers who were suspect on crosses. And Keegan says, apart from tactics, there are tricks perfected by one player or a group of players. For instance, when Jack Charlton was playing for Leeds in England, he would move up and stand directly in front of the rival keeper at corner kicks, blocking his view and giving him problems. And Keegan does say that some players do get a bit clever, and mentions Willie Carr and Ernie Hunt for their donkey kick for Wolves against Everton in 1970. But he also says that the increased televising of games is giving the secrets away. So the donkey kick is a famous thing with Willie Carr and Ernie Hunt, isn't it?
Coventry against Everton,
which the league or the FA changed the rules after that the ball had to do a full rotation or something. And
it was played by 2 feet. Well, he played it with 2 feet, so he just the ball was between his ankles, and he jumped up. He jumped up, so it can only be played by 1 foot at the time. It did create it was a massive talking point at the time. Ingenious, but it changed the game a bit in certain ways.
Yeah, I love when new things happen in the game, because you think nothing can surprise me now. There's nothing new that can happen in the game, and then things like that, and it's like, all right, okay, brilliant, that's great.
Yeah, well, I think it was heavily featured in Match of the Day. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah,
Paul?
yeah.
I mean, even the connection by Ernie Hunt was fantastic. It was flawless. It was, it was great from a Liverpoolian's point of view. It was great to see against Everton. So,
another one we looked at recently was the Dennis Stewart, the goal for Man City, where I think it was Asa Hartford flicked it up for him. It was an indirect free kick inside the box, and he's flicked it up for him. And again, it's like, for me, that goal shouldn't. It was a great goal and a great strike, but it shouldn't have stood, because you can't kick the ball up like that. As you say, it has to also do a full rotation. But if you're flicking it up, then you're touching it after your initial touch, so it probably have been an indirect free kick. But again, great ideas, absolutely brilliant. Let's applaud.
Yeah, that. You could, in those days. I mean, sometimes referees didn't react sometimes because they probably weren't sure of what they saw. I mean, okay, the Ernie Hunt one, that's obvious, or the car. But sometimes referees these days, everything's obviously TV and we've got VAR now and all this type of stuff. But I think sometimes things happened and referees didn't. I'm sure I've seen Peter Cormack take a free kick once with a bouncing ball and just lobbed it over. People did try tricks, and you got away with it.
Yeah. I'm thinking of Joe Jordan when we mentioned that with the hand against Wales. Yeah,
exactly. I was there that night. Yeah. Scotland, Wales. Yeah. It's never been. It was never sort of really taken much further. Okay, it happens. Wales were furious, but it stood, didn't it? And Wales, Scotland went to the World Cup.
Yeah, I think Joe Jordan still denies it though.
He does.
Genuinely, he still denies that it happened, even though there's obvious evidence that he did.
I like Joe, but I think he needs to come. He needs to come around. Tell us.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next page, which is 3 keepers are competing for the England #1 spot. May the best man win, says candidate Peter Shilton of Stoke. So may the best man win is the attitude of England keeper Peter Shilton in the race for the England goalkeeper jersey. Up until recently, it was a 2-man race between him and Ray Clemence. But with the addition of QPR's Phil Parkes in the recent squad, things are hotting up. Despite the rivalry, Shilton and Clemence are good mates. He says, we talk about different aspects of goalkeeping quite a lot, but there's something special about the position we play. He admits he watches for flaws in Clemence's play, saying, I think it's only human, although I have no desire to see Ray make a mistake. We all want to be out where the action is and look for errors which may give us a chance. Shilton talks about how TV coverage highlights errors that keepers make, but says that it's something they have to live with. He says, when I see a goalie make an error on TV, I feel sorry for him. It's a fact of soccer life, however. Now, regarding Parks, he only got one cap, which was against Portugal. And we spoke about this before, but it was to make a second against Wales, where Don Revie had promised him that he would play the second half of the game. But with the game 0-0 at half-time, Revie decided against the change and decided to leave Ray Clemence on. Parks went home after the game and told his wife he'd never make himself available for England again. So that's a sad way to end that, isn't it? But Clemence played 61 caps and Shilton 125, and I looked at their overall appearances and it's outstanding. Peter Shilton 1,249 senior appearances and Ray Clemence 1,117 senior appearances. That's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I think when you're in that time when two outstanding individuals, in competition for one place. I mean, imagine how many caps Schultz would have got if Clem hadn't been there. He might have got those other 61 caps. So they did well in some ways to get as much of the action as they, as each of them did. I mean, we were very fiercely in the Ray Clemence camp. I mean, he was faultless, and I mean, a major reason why Liverpool was so successful at the time. Shilton I used to tend to think Shilton was a little bit more. He made saves look a little bit more spectacular than he had to. With Clemence was a little bit no nonsense type of thing. Just do the job and then just sort of like, get on with it. Get on with his game. Shilton played to the cameras. We always felt.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. We'll move on to page 13 here. So this is Jimmy Case we're looking at. So it says Jimmy Case is now the new sharp shooting star of Anfield's Cop, but once he turned Liverpool down.
How young he looks there in that picture.
I know, that's a young Jimmy. That's that's a good picture. Yeah, he'd be about 19 there.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, self-confessed Liverpool fan Jimmy Case was playing for local side South Liverpool and was asked to sign for the team he loved. He turned them down, saying that he needed to finish his apprenticeship as an electrician first. He did, however, sign on as an amateur until his apprenticeship finished before signing on as a pro. On the decision to finish his apprenticeship, Case said, "I thought it would be best to have a trade behind me. I'm glad I did, but I sometimes wish I'd become pro earlier because there are so many things you can work on with full-time training." Now, talking about how he slipped through the Liverpool scouting system, he says, "I feel the reason is that I was so small as a youngster. Even when I left school, I was only about 5'5", and I think that put a few people off." He says he took up weightlifting to bulk himself up, and he managed to stretch a couple of inches in height as well. On Liverpool, he says, "They have always been my team. I used to be a regular on the Cop, but I never dreamed one day I'd actually be out there wearing the red shirt. The great Ian Callaghan was always special to me. It staggers me to think I now share the same dressing room as him. There's nothing better than scoring in front of the Cop. It's the biggest thrill I have had in the game so far." He didn't have the best start to this season, having punctured a lung in a freak tackle at Birmingham and was out until November. But he's now striving to make sure of a regular spot in the first team. So I'm guessing he would have just been coming back as you were coming into the team. Is that right?
I played in the reserves with Jimmy. He's a little older. He's a couple of years older than me. We trained on Tuesday and Thursday nights with Jimmy. I knew Jimmy, going back to being 13, 14, 15 years old. I made my debut. He'd made his debut before me, but he didn't make an appearance for a while. And meantime, I made my debut. So we were sort of we were pretty much there, and pretty close to coming in at the similar times. I mean, he was part of the. He came off in 70. Yeah, he got into the team in 75, 70. He got into the team in the season I broke in 75, 76. We won our first league championship medals that season. I came on for him in the last game against Wolves. Spent a lot of time with Jim. And people talk about hard players, and I don't know that you've heard other players from other clubs talk about it, but he's the toughest player you ever came across. Incredibly physical. And when he went to Brighton and Southampton, his reputation was even more enhanced, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're going to move on to the next article on the same page. So this is 1975, a bad year for Brian. So this is about Brian Talbot at Ipswich Town. So the article says, Brian Talbot was one man that was glad to see the back of 1975 after being knocked out of the FA Cup in the semi-finals before losing the league by 2 points. This was compounded when he broke his leg in the second week of the new season. Talbot says that the hardest part of coming back from an injury like that was getting the confidence in your leg again. While he was out, he was kept busy so as to keep him from being bored. From exercises set up for him by physio Brian Simpson to daily phone calls. Talbot has one simple ambition for 1976. He says, I just want to stay clear of injury and establish myself as a first division player again. So as a spoiler, Talbot would make a total of 23 appearances in the league and cups this season. But he did, however, get back to full fitness and went on to play over 800 games in his career, of which 227 were for Ipswich Town. He moved to Arsenal in 1979 for 450,000 and played 327 games in 6 years at the club. He then had spells at Watford, Stoke and West Brom. In total, it was 803 senior games, scoring 108 goals. So he won the FA Cup in 1978 with Ipswich Town, and then the following season with Arsenal. So he won it 2 years in a row with different clubs.
Yeah, he's good. He knocked us out in. He scored the. We played them in the semi-final. The one that I don't know if you remember, went to 4 games, and he scored the deciding goal in the fourth game, the third replay. At Coventry, and they won the cup. Yeah, that they went on, played Man United, won the cup. In 1976, my first year, I went on holiday with my mum and dad to Butland, Skegness, and he was on holiday there with his wife in Butland, Skegness. Brilliant. You don't get footballers in Butlands now on holiday, do you?
It says in your book you beat him in a 100-yard dash.
That's right, yeah. My dad said, because we'd seen him walking around, he walked around like a superstar in all kinds of Adidas gear. And my dad goaded me into entering into the 100-meter dash, that thingy. And he said, I bet you can't beat him. I said, you're joking, aren't you? Absolutely no competition. And I did, yeah. I won my heat. I mean, 100-meter like sprint in Butland, must have been about 100 fellas in it, so there was like all kind different heats, and then I won the final. Yeah, I don't know whether he remembers it as well as I do.
Yeah. Okay, so before we go back in, what I've done is I've looked through from the end of 75 through 76, and I've looked through the magazines for some articles on yourself. So if we're okay, we'll have a wee look through some of the things that I mentioned. So the first one is from the 22nd of May 1976. So this is Emlyn Hughes, and he talks about Liverpool having just won the first division in a game against Wolves. Now, he says, everybody on both sides gave all they had, and though the match was not a classic, it had a special atmosphere because there was so much at stake for Wolves and us. And once again, David Fairclough came on as a substitute to do a great job. Since Christmas, this has been Fairclough's year, and he's served us some brilliant and unexpected football. In addition, David has managed to score some important goals. So that was really the first little article I could find that talked about you.
Yeah, I liked Emlyn. Emlyn was a great. He'd been a little bit of a hero of mine as well. You know, it was great. He was an incredible character, and sadly, I think he died too young, but doesn't get remembered quite the way he should have been, I think. Yeah.
So next one, and I apologise for the title on the next one. I know that it's a bit of even though it's the name of your book, but. So this next one is Super Subs is the title. Yeah. And so this was 26th of June 1976. And the Shoot published an article looking at a new phenomenon in the game called the Super Sub. And they said it would be wrong to say David Fairclough won Liverpool the title, but certainly without his end of season contribution, the Reds would probably not have overtaken QPR. Fairclough burst onto the scene and became a household name in Merseyside in no time at all. Liverpool fans will never forget his last gasp goal against Everton or his 2 against Man City at Main Road. His speed and eye for goals have made him a hero with the Kop, and next season he should win a regular place with the champions. So there we go, a nice wee photograph of yourself in there as well.
Sorry, can you just talk a wee bit about that goal against Everton, David? Because I watched it the other day there, and it's a tremendous bit of a solo run from you.
Bit of a, it was when you see goals like Maradona's and Giggs' goals, had a lot of press recently. It kind of, one or two people say, "Oh, remember your goal against Everton?" And thankfully, I've not been able to, I've not been allowed to forget it. It's been great that people have remembered it so well. Evertonians still talk to me about it, and equally, obviously, Liverpool. Any Liverpoolians that were there thought it was quite a decent effort. It was it was memorable. I mean, growing up in Liverpool with this Liverpool-Everton rivalry going on. I mean, to score the winner against Everton, or vice versa, it's one of them real ambitions. So it was great. It was a great memory, that.
So from the same magazine, there's a centre page spread, and it's the Liverpool celebrating winning the double, having already won the UEFA Cup against Bruges, and they completed the double with the win over Wolves. And shown are the team celebrating in the dressing rooms, and how happy do you look there? That's absolutely magnificent.
That's that was our first. Phil Neal, myself, Jimmy Case, Joey Jones. That was our first title. So it was an incredible night. It's kind of gets lost a little bit. Because of the things that came after, but winning the league the way that we did was so dramatic. It was incredible. Being like just 19 years old was,
Sorry, I guess you could argue that what came after probably needed that to happen first. If that didn't happen, then what came after may not have happened.
Yeah, most definitely, because this was Paisley's second season, and obviously, he wanted to achieve, and he wants to do it in his own way. And this team, you got Callie and Smithy there at the back, the two older hands, and the rest of them was evolving. Stevie Highway and Emlyn had been, Tomo been there from Shanks's time, but the new players were coming through. The likes of myself, Ray Kennedy, Neely, Jimmy. So it was that was a big step. Having been champions, in the following year, you sort of, we kind of carried it on because we won the league the following. We won the league the following season. It was a fantastic period to be involved with.
I always say, David, that the guy that doesn't get enough credit in my book for that era of Liverpool is Ray Kennedy. What was Ray like to play with?
Well, Ray was a little bit complex character. I mean, great when he had his when he was when he was in a good mood, but he was the one in the group who could be a bit temperamental. Really, you had to know how to handle him when you were around him on certain days. You knew when he was a bit tetchy. You knew when you could joke in his company and say anything. But he had obviously he was naturally a forward, and Bob Paisley had managed to adapt him into this left midfield role. And often when I was in the team, Paisley would say, when the play's building up on the left, for me to hang out left, and Ray Kennedy would come in so many times on like in this inside left type of position and score goals, on that sort of on the back post kind of area, edge of the box, and he would just ghost in Ray. He was great at what he did because he moved in his own time kind of thing. He wasn't pacey in the slightest, but he had a great left foot.
So the next one we're going to look at is an article from Kevin Keegan from the 17th of July, and he takes a look at his most exciting players for the next season, and he picks you out, David, by saying a candidate for next season's shoot, goal, silverware must be Liverpool's David Fairclough, who showed in his handful of appearances, mainly as sub, that he's a star in the making. He really was out of this world against Man City in a vital league match at Main Road, scoring 2 of the 3 goals that demolished them. Now, high praise here. He says, I have never seen any other player anywhere put on such an inspired one-man show. That's high praise indeed from Kevin Keegan.
Yeah, I've never. That's the first time I've seen that. Yeah, that's very flattering.
What was it like playing alongside Kevin Keegan?
Well, Kevin was great and still is. I mean, Kevin is the most personable of people. I've never seen anybody, react to fans off the field and in quite the way that he is. So his feet are very much firmly on the ground, and he played with all that enthusiasm. His energy was his biggest asset. He probably wouldn't have been the most sort of naturally talented player, I don't think, initially, but I think he made himself into a much better player than when he came in. Even though he had so much going for him in his early days, he just got better and better and better subsequently, being European Footballer of the Year on a couple of occasions. But there was a criticism of Kevin sometimes. I think when I was coming through a little bit, he tended to want to take too much responsibility. Sometimes I might find myself in a position, I've got the ball, and he'd come too close to you and basically forcing you to give it to him. Whereas maybe you wanted to go and do something yourself. Not all the time, but sometimes I remember having this memory of thinking that he wants to be the start of everything. With his energy. And we kind of, we let him to it for the most part. I mean, everybody fully respected him, loved him. There was no animosity towards Kevin, but I think a few would have felt that he sometimes wants to take on a little bit, more than he was capable of doing.
So next up, that sings your praises from the 28th of August is Alan Clark. So Alan picks you out as a rising star in the Shoot magazine from the 28th of August, saying, Liverpool super sub David Fairclough is my selection as the best up-and-coming young striker. He has good reflexes and is very quick in the box, and he knows where the goal is. He can do even better this season. So, again, it's high praise there indeed from Alan Clark.
Yeah, I'm very. I mean, you showed me a couple of things I've never seen before, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
People people used to have this impression of Alan Clark. I met him some years ago. We used to have this little bit of a golf in the in the years gone by, and we ended up playing golf. And I met him one day, spent some time with him, and I completely changed my thing towards Alan Clark. He was a really, really nice bloke.
Yeah. So the next one is an article on yourself, which I'm sure because you've given an interview, you must remember this one. So from the 9th of October, it's an article saying that you always nursed an ambition to be a sports writer.
Yeah.
And it says, it sounds funny now, but even though I was already on Liverpool's books, I never really thought about becoming a professional at the time. It somehow stayed in the back of my mind. I was sure I was going to be a sports writer and concentrated on taking my O-levels. Of course, when Liverpool finally offered me apprentice terms at 17, I jumped at the chance. But I still stayed on at school a further 6 months to take my exams. You were offered professional terms after 6 months as an apprentice. And I love this bit of information. You actually signed in front of an audience of millions.
Yeah.
And you explained the children's TV programme Magpie was doing a story of young footballers, and they showed another lad and me signing our forms for Liverpool. That's absolutely brilliant.
It was. Yeah, somebody sent me a still picture of the. I mean, it's popped up a couple of times down the years, but the Magpie thing, but not in its entirety. But then somebody sent me a picture still of me signing me thing with Shanks, which was was fantastic. It showed up after I'd done with the book actually, so I'd never seen this picture, and I have it on my phone now.
Yeah. I saw that one earlier on. Yeah, actually, you're at the side of him, aren't you? At team or something. Yeah, it's a great.
Yeah, and I don't know where it came from. I know a press guy sent me it, but I don't know who took the. I don't have no memory of somebody taking pictures.
So the last one we're going to look at here is actually from January 1986. So we're jumping ahead, and I'm just wanting to know. This is one of these rumour pieces, and I want to know if there was any truth in this. So the last one is about a rumour that Hibs manager John Blackley is planning a swoop for David Fairclough, who has just left Oldham Athletic. Was there any truth in that?
You know, I honestly don't know, to be fair. I had this little spell at Oldham. It was a little bit of the messy thing. The book goes into the reasons I was at Oldham. But my intention was, I had a few inquiries. I'm not sure that I was ever aware that Hibs were interested, actually. But I had in the back of my mind interest to go back to Europe, if I was honest. Yeah. So which I eventually did. You know, went to Belgium.
Was there ever any other interest from Scotland that you're aware of?
You know, somewhere in the back of my mind, I think that there was something, and I'm trying to think, and I don't know whether or not what might have been that occasion. I had a strange year with Oldham. I played. I was doing quite well, actually. I wasn't in the team. We had a bit of a fallout with Joe Royle, but you know what? I think somewhere in the back of my mind, this is coming through. I think that might have been the occasion. Mm-hmm. I was linked to Scotland. I found out some years ago later, and I've only told a few people at the golf club actually. But my grandmother was Scottish,
right?
And it was only really the family knew and all that type of thing. But it's only in the last 5 years that we realised that my grandmother was.
Really? We could have capped you.
Could have been, yeah. Could have been. They've claimed me at the golf club anyway. I play in the home internationals. The captain of the Scots has me. He has me all tapped up.
Yeah. Well, if you'd even visited, we would have claimed you. So.
And when you were at Oldham, David, you scored 2 goals against Liverpool, didn't you?
I did, yeah, in the League Cup.
Yeah. What was that feeling like?
It was brilliant, you know. And I got a couple of pictures of it, and it wasn't the way the League Cup is these days, when teams put weekend team. This was the Liverpool's double year, and they were full. They were in full first team. You know, Bruce in goal, Loro at the back, and Alan Hansen and Rushy and everybody. Yeah, so scoring 2 against Liverpool was brilliant. Yeah, it was really good fun. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. So we'll delve back into unless you have any questions, Tom, we'll delve back into the magazine.
No, let's go back.
In fact, before we go in, so we have a charity partner with the podcast, David, which is the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share. And so I'm just going to give a little readout for what they do. So this is a charitable organisation that provides various services and support to the local community, including the following: school uniform bank, a school holiday brunch bags, food provisions, Christmas toy bank, cooking and growing lessons, and a baby bank. Now, they provide essential support to the local community in supporting individuals and families, and we will be looking to support them in any way we can through the podcast. This will include drives for donations of food, money and support in the form of volunteers. We'll also be raising awareness of the group to highlight the work that they do, but also to ensure that families and individuals who can benefit from the group are aware that these vital services actually exist. And you can follow them on the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share group on Facebook, or keep an eye on their Twitter accounts at shoottb_podcast and Scott's Footy Cards for updates and news on our charity partner. So one of the things we do with the podcast is we have a web page for it as well. And on the web page, we basically put all the magazine clippings and photographs and everything that we talk about. So that when somebody's listening to the podcast, they can follow along and look at the articles like we're doing as well. One of the things we do as well is we put a donate button on there that for every £1 that you donate, you get a virtual raffle ticket. And when we draw that, the winner will get a goodie bag, and it will contain the original magazine that we've been going through, as well as some other goodies as well. So I'll put in some cards and stickers from the collection. So that the money for that will go to the West Dunbartonshire Community Food Share. So what we'll also do, and we'll touch on what you're up to as well, but if you have any links, any web pages or charities that you support yourself, then when we're doing the web page, we'll be in contact, get those and make sure that we've put them on the web page as well. Okay, so if we jump back into the magazine, I'm just going to jump a few more pages again. So I'm going to look at this. We're at page 25 it is. There's a black and white team photo of Bury, and we're going to have a wee quick look at that because there's a couple of interesting names in here. So the players in 3 rows. The kit is a white shirt with, I'm presuming, blue collar shorts and socks, because I think that's Bury's colours. So the first one I'm going to look at is Jerry Keenan, who he was a Liverpool youth and played for Skelmersdale. He started at Bury in 1975. Derek Spence, who would go on to make 26 appearances for Northern Ireland, the first of which came while he was actually at Bury. And next is Jimmy Nicholson, another Northern Ireland international, although he'd amassed all of his 41 caps before joining Bury. He was previously with Man United and Huddersfield Town. I think it's just absolutely incredible that Bury had at least two, Northern Ireland internationals in their team at this point. Next player, Andy Rowland, who would play 287 league games for Swindon. Billy Rudd, who I've seen photos of Billy before. He looks a rough character, but he spells it at York, Grimsby, Rochdale and Bury. And the last one is George Buchan, who's the brother of Martin, who played for Man United. And
he looks like him,
yeah. Who actually, George had 3 games for Man United. He played 29 times for Aberdeen, but he had 3 games for Man United before moving to Bury as well. Yeah, I thought I'd just pick on a few of those.
Alan Kennedy's brother's on the back, the right side. Keith Kennedy.
All right.
Played.
You mentioned, you can see the likeness there.
Played a million games for them. I think he was the most ever. I think. Well, this was 78. I don't think he played all his career here at Bury.
Yeah, that's a good spot. I'm just disappointed I missed that one. So, yeah. So we'll look at the next page, which is a focus of Alan Kennedy, and look at that little face. That's a little.
No wonder he had a moustache.
I've highlighted this because he's either had a bit of a hit in his lips, or that's maybe a sore from kissing the lassies or something.
I know, yeah.
So let's take a look through some of the answers. His favourite player was Terry Cooper. His favourite other team was Bury, which is strange because he was from Sunderland.
That's because his brother played, you see.
Right, okay, yeah, that all makes sense now. That of course. His biggest thrill was playing for England under 23s, and he would go on to get 2 full caps. His biggest disappointment, losing to Liverpool in the 1974 FA Cup final and having to withdraw from the full England squad due to injury. Best country visited, Norway. I'm a big fan of that.
That's probably still his best country. He's there a lot.
Yeah.
Likes Norway, Al.
Oh, I love Norway. I've got family over there. It's a great
place.
Yeah. Favourite food? Of course, it's steak.
Yeah.
Professional ambition to be a full international. And which person in the world would you most like to meet? Scottish comedian Billy Connolly. That's
all right. That's a good shout. That's a good shout.
Very good shout. So memories of Alan?
Oh, plenty of memories. Alan's one of my closest mates. I see Alan probably more than most of the ex-players. He lives down there, doesn't live far away. Played with him I think I played with him in this match. I think that's an England B.
Right.
England B kit.
I've seen a photograph. I've seen a photograph of you in the same kit as well. So
yeah, it's England B international. That. I'm pretty sure. Played West Germany, and loads of memories of Al. Very close to Alan. He's daft as a brush. Always was, still is. And yeah, he's just he's a good lad. Big heart, Alan. He does a lot for. He's one of those that if people are looking to ask players to do something. Alan's one of the very, very first who you'll ask. He's massively supportive of everything and anything. He's very keen still, but just daft. But yeah, no, good lad, good heart, great heart, Alan.
And does he say he meant that shot in the 1981 European Cup final?
Well, yeah, he says he saw the goalkeeper didn't think he was going to. The goalkeeper didn't think he was going to shoot because he didn't have any reputation. He tells a good story actually. He says like, "What am I doing?" He said, "I only ran out the way just to move some space." Ray Kennedy decides to throw it, hits him on the chest, goes that far forward. He's got nowhere else to go now. He's just got to go and try and get the ball. Centre half try and takes him out, misses him. Now the goalkeeper's thinking, well, he won't shoot. and he did. He tells a little thing that Dave Johnson's the first player to him, and he says to me, "Why did you pass to me? Why did you pass to me?" And he says, "David," he said, "if I'd passed to you," he said, "we'd still be playing." So, even though he was only about a yard out.
Yeah.
So, but he's a legend, yeah. He really has. I mean, he's been hugely popular with people, Alan, because of, he achieved and scoring that 81 goal and scoring that penalty.
84.
84. Yeah, amazing.
Brilliant. Okay, so just moving on, I'm just going to jump to the second last page. So this is a club call with Aberdeen. So Shoot says that the first season of the new Scottish Premier League has not been a conspicuous one for Aberdeen. While in no danger of winning the league, they also say that they're in no danger of actually being relegated, citing that 2-0 victory over Celtic and a 1-0 win away against Rangers as the highlights of the season. Now, just as a wee spoiler, Aberdeen would actually finish fourth from the bottom, but were on the same number of points as Dundee, who got relegated. So Dundee United were also on 32 points, but Dundee had a much worse goal difference. It was -13 compared to Aberdeen's -1. So on this page, there's a picture of Ali McLeod, and the other club officials are mentioned as well. There's also last season's goal scoring record is shown with Arthur Graham as the top scorer with 11 league goals. The bottom photo shows keeper Bobby Clark going down in a challenge with a Motherwell player while Willie Miller looks on. So that not that he looks at, but that's a very young Willie Miller in there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
The record fee that is mentioned as well, paid for a player, was £70,000 for Drew Jarvie from Airdrie, and £180,000 was the fee received for Joe Harper to Everton, also in 1972. So the two records were back in 72, 70,000 for Drew Jarvie from Airdrie and 180,000 for Joe Harper to Everton, who then he came back and joined Hibs, I think, when he came back to Scotland. So on the back page, let's put this the right way, we have a full team colour photo of Aberdeen, and the Aberdeen team is in 2 rows. The kit is all red with white collar and cuffs, and there's a white stripe down the side of the shorts and a large white band around the top of the socks. Now, Joe Smith on the front row looks as if he's wearing a pair of Sambas. Yeah. So, and Duncan Davidson, and here he's wearing a pair of boots that look like mitre. I think those are mitre.
Mitre, yeah, maybe Buckter even, maybe.
Was Duncan Davidson at Toronto at the same time?
He was. I was going to say, when you said then, I said that Duncan from Toronto.
I'll come back to him in a wee second. So the Billy Peary is wearing a pair of Stylo Matchmakers. Yeah. And the last pair of boots I want to look at is Walker McCall's, because those feet are absolutely enormous. And you see the size of those feet compared to Billy Peary's beside him. It's like twice the size. It really is.
Yeah. What were your boots?
I was only a size 8.
What was your boot of choice, or would it have been Adidas?
When I broke in, I was always wearing. As a young lad, I had Adidas and Puma. I had a pair of Adidas, pair of Puma. Now, as I came into the professional thing, I was wearing Adidas, and towards the end, and we were getting to the UEFA Cup final. Emlyn Hughes was a big goaler man.
Yeah,
and so he said, "Look, he was well in with the guy from Gola, a guy called Anton, who was the rep for them." And he said, if you doctor your boots up to make Gola for the UEFA Cup final, you get like 250 quid or something off Anton. So bloody hell, So off they went. The boots went off to the cobblers, and they came back with the yellow Gola stripes on. In fact, I've seen a picture in the later on in the past, and you can see the Adidas boots with the Gola stripes added, and yellowed up for the game. But it was a few bob in your pocket, in those days. They're all the tricks. And then I went Adidas. Adidas came back to me the following year, and I was on a signed contract then with Adidas for years, until about 81, 82, and Kenny was Puma at that point.
Yeah.
And he said, the Puma rep wanted another Puma player in the team. And he said, would I go over? So I went over to Puma. So me and Kenny were me and Kenny did a couple of things with Puma, which was quite good for me, really. Just, you know, give me a little bit of extra profiling.
I think that there used to be there was a Celtic team photo when Kenny was still there, and I think it was Stylo Matchmakers. It was the advert, and Kenny, because he was probably still Puma then as well, he had the Stylo bag in front of his feet, so he couldn't actually see what he was wearing. So
the boots. Yeah,
it's incredible that they went to that sort of level of detail back then as well.
I mean, later on, the company started to having pictures taken and seeing the soles of your shoes and giving warnings, saying, you know, you're supposed to be wearing Gola boots, but you're wearing Adidas boots. That became a little bit of a thing soon after. So I wore Adidas when I went to Belgium, but we were contracted to Patrick.
Right.
And I had to have them doctored up to make them look like Patrick boots. It was like, I couldn't wear a pair of I couldn't, at the ones they were being asked to, I just couldn't wear the Patrick boots.
I think the story we've spoke about before, Tom, was Alan Ball.
Alan
Ball,
with his white boots, and I think he did the same thing where he painted a pair of Adidas white. Yeah. And they eventually made him a proper pair of boots. But yeah, that it's certainly I'm guessing that's something that probably happened. From what you're saying, it probably was more common than I'd imagined.
Yeah, it was very common to the boots being doctored up. Tommy Smith used to tell a story. I think it was Kevin Keegan tells it, and he said he was asked. Alan Ball starts wearing all white boots, so they came to Tommy Smith, to Kevin Keegan, asked him if he would wear all red Hummel, and you know, thinking, well, that would be a great thing, all red kit and everything. And Kevin asks Smithy what he thinks. So he said, "You're joking, aren't you, wearing red boots and all this type of thing?" He said, "Well, they want somebody to wear the red boots." So he put Kevin off. A couple of weeks later, he was wearing red boots. Tommy Smith. No one had the guts to tell Tommy that he looked after him, but but he had the persona to carry it all off, and then that's true. He wore red boots for a while, Tom.
I've got an advert photo of those, and they actually, I don't know if it was just the advert, but they look pink in it. So I'm guessing Tommy Smith wouldn't have worn them if they'd arrived and looked pinker than red.
Yeah, they weren't sort of like Liverpool red, but they were red. You know, red with the white stripes. And I mean, he was kind of the top man there at the time. Smithy, he was even though Kevin was the glamour boy and everything, Smithy was the boss type of figure around the place. You know, the loudest and the most outspoken.
Okay, so let's have a look at some of the players that are in here. So we have at the back, we've got Drew Jarvie, Willie Miller, Davy Robb. I don't know if Davy Robb had a spell at Norwich City. I think he'd been to the States as well. Then we've got Bobby Clark, who has spent a large portion of his life out in the States as well. And I don't know if you can see it at the end there, Willie Young, who's going to play with Spurs, Arsenal and Forest. 5 inches bigger than everybody else. Just a bit. The next one to look at is Arthur Graham, who played for Leeds United, Man United and Bradford City before coming back up here. Duncan, so let's have a wee look at Duncan. He played in the US Tulsa Rednecks and Toronto Blizzard between 81 and 82.
He did, yeah. He had a tash by the time I was there. A little dark black moustache.
Yeah. Just going to say, what was the experience of playing in the NASL like?
Well, it was you know, said like before, I think when you think you've played for Liverpool, or not you personally, but I think people think you're going to go over to somewhere like Toronto and eat it up and make it look easy. It was tough. We played on AstroTurf. My first game was against Vancouver Whitecaps, who were one of the favourites at the time. We beat them 3-0 over there. I had a good game. It was a good start for, you know, as a first debut. Someone told me afterwards I got 2 assists. I don't know what assists were at the time. Assists, who was bothered about assists? It's all about scoring goals, not sort of like laying them on. But we had a good win. The next games were in Toronto, and it was kind of wintry in Toronto still. It was early April, and our pitch was like playing on the street. It was that hard, the AstroTurf. It took a little bit of getting used to, really, and I don't think I really, I found them quite quizclov me in the first couple of games. It became a little bit difficult until I scored a few, and then I found a position that suited me more playing on AstroTurf. I was more suited to playing as a left winger than as a centre forward. It was interesting. Everywhere you went was a different pitch. You go to Tampa, it was lovely grass. You go to Chicago and it's half grass, half shale. Because you played on a baseball diamond.
Baseball diamonds, yeah.
So nothing was ever the same. It was always an experience, and it was a leveler, really. You couldn't say we could say we beat Chicago at home, but we wouldn't beat them on their patch, and that was the kind of the way. We had a couple of great wins against Cosmos. Cosmos went quite the team. They I don't know whether they underperformed, but we were in the same division as Cosmos, and we had a couple of good wins against Cosmos. It was a great experience. It was good.
You still had Chinalia playing with them then.
Chinalia was playing, yeah, and Steve Hunt was outside left for Naskins was on the right. Yeah. He was wide right for Cosmos. I was wide left for. So, I mean, I had to track back with and be careful. Naskins was great going forward, but going the other way, he kind of gave me free license, which was, he didn't chase me back, which was good, nice experience.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah. Okay, so the last person I'm going to look at in here is the wonderfully named Ian Hare, and he's certainly living up to it. It's not quite Brian Kidd, levels of Hare, but the fact that he's also called Ian Hare. Gives him that extra.
You know what? From a distance, he looks like my mate who's just got a job at Tottenham, Trevor Birch.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen Trevor Birch. If you had a picture, but you put the two of them together, they could be could be related.
Yeah, I'll look out for that. So with that, we've got to the end of the magazine. What's going on with your life at the moment, David? What are you up to?
Yeah, well, I do some bits and pieces with Liverpool, which is I'm a director of a company that tries to introduce innovation, largely from the US to the UK and beyond, really, if we can, which has been fascinating because I came into it in a kind of a medical sense, or with a medical kind of with medical targets, but we found ourselves, we've kind of not so much. We haven't diversified too far away from that, but it's not as medical perhaps as we first sort of imagined the business was going to be. Mm-hmm. So that's a thing called Medisport Scientific Innovations. So it's kind of a long title, but it's kind of says it all. What it's what we do.
And how's it been lockdown with you? Have you been dealing with it okay? Has it been
lockdown was awkward because I unfortunately picked up the virus in March. Right. Laid me up. What I did find was that it kind of made me susceptible to other things. Right. And I picked up 2 or 3 other illnesses on the back of it. I had shingles, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody. And I had picked up another couple of viruses, which all came about because of my immunity. Mm-hmm. So it was a bit tricky for 5 or 6 weeks of the lockdown. Yeah. And thankfully, fit and up and about now, and the business is back to we're kind of now also finding that what we do and the people we want to speak to are more available to so we're kind of we're busy at the moment, and we're just about to launch it. To introduce a new product into the timing of it is quite sort of we were talking about this afternoon. It's quirky the way it's all come around because this is very much suited to the time that we're in. Right. This one product. So.
What's the atmosphere like around Liverpool now? They're back at the top.
Well, I mean, a lot of the people would like to think that it's going to be, exciting and great again. But until I think we feel as if we're part of it and, in the stadium, I think, some Liverpool, I mean, obviously, I'm talking to a lot. Most of the time, I speak to older Liverpool fans and that. They're not excited as they want to be, because we've been kind of so sort of disjointed. It's all been sad the way that, having chased it for so long, that we weren't a part of the culmination of it, and it was fantastic, and it was a fantastic story. We were flying towards winning the title. It looked like we were, we weren't that far away from it when it all went to lockdown early March, and the fans just weren't part of it. So it's been a bit sad, really, that we've missed out on some great nights and events at Anfield.
Yeah. What do you think chances are of retaining the title?
Well, I think they start off. I think there's no reason to think that they're not one of two favourites. I think it'd be difficult to rule out City. I think Man United, given their due, are trying all that they can to attract.
Seem to be coming back.
Put a real superstar team together. I think Liverpool's threat is going to come from either of those two. Myself, I spoke to a couple of the lads. Spoke to one of the boys at the weekend. Doesn't think United will feature, but I think United are going to be a tough team to beat this year.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I don't think they're a finished article at the back, but they've got a lot of goal threat. So that's it's going to be an interesting year, and it's always the hardest. Always the hardest thing is to defend the title, isn't it? Winning it is not so much easy, but it's easier than defending it. You got the target on your back.
Yeah.
Listen, David, I'd like to thank you for spending the evening with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, David.
No bother.
And what I'll do is I'll make sure, because I follow you on Twitter, so I'll make sure that all these images and stuff, I'll get them sent to you, especially the ones that you've not seen. But yeah, again, thank you. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you.
I don't do much on Twitter, really. I have my moments. I generally support the charities that I'm.
So I'll just say we'd like to say a special thanks to Pete Wiley of the Mighty Wah for the use of Story of the Blues in the music of our show. So you can catch up with Pete on petewiley.co.uk, and you can check out the details of upcoming gigs and new music when that starts happening again. And we'd also like to thank our producer, Diane Jardin, for the great work and support on the podcast. Please check out transmissionroom.co.uk, where you can book music, recording and rehearsal facilities in Clydebank. And on that, again, just a big thank you to David Fairclough for joining us and Shoot the Breeze here. So thank you, David.
Thank you, guys. It's been fun. Yeah, a lot of pleasant memories, some really interesting stuff. Thanks.
Great stuff. And as always, I'd like to thank Tom for being Tom.
Thank you, Andy.
And thank you to everyone out there listening. Please share the podcast with your friends, give us some feedback, go to the website, read through the web pages with it, donate, just get involved. Until the next time, let's shoot the breeze.